One of the exhibitions showing in Adelaide during July 21 is at the main gallery in Halifax Street in the city of Adelaide. The exhibition is entitled Phenomenon. In that a phenomenon can be described as an event as opposed to something large and impressive, each work in the exhibition presents a moment in time when a statement could be made that this was what happened at that moment. However, the moment in this case is small enough to pass unnoticed or at least unrecognized for what it is. The clue is in the titles. Each title is a row of 4 numbers. When you shoot film through a digital video camera, each of the frames is numbered. Hours, minutes, seconds, frames, in order to help the editor pinpoint the exact moment to apply a cut or transition. Given that there might well be 26 frames per second, the pinpointing of such a moment in many ways presents a logical impossibility. We don't actually experience it. But film and television present us with a version of reality based upon such frames. You get an idea of a frame from traditional celluloid film. A 90-minute film would have 129,600 such frames. But other than in editing it all, the moment captured in the frame may tell you little. What you may not get is sharpness of image, or in fact be able to recognize an image in the patch of light and dark in front of you. It depends on the camera. At the other end of the scale, though, is what you might see with cricket coverage. The camera used to show a ball in mid-flight may well be recording at 1,000 frames per second, certainly too fast for the human eye to isolate. A painting such as this is just such a moment. The figure is caught in motion, in transition, while the other areas are motionless, but enlivened with texture. Words appear on the surface as seeming dialogue, a visualization of the soundtrack. This is in fact not the way film is recorded. Well, it is with cheaper video cameras, but not with the big expensive ones. If you go onto a film set, you will see that the sound and the picture are recorded separately. They're only brought together in the editing. This is artificial. We as human beings don't experience a separation of sound and picture like this. We experience both at the same time. However, words are traditionally spoken at 3 words per second. That's a good speaking speed. Now, at 3 words per second, a lot of images have passed in front of the camera by that time. So isolating one frame and then adding words is a totally artificial experience. This contradiction creates not so much confusion, but layers of improbability. Of course, a painting is not a film. They are 2 separate mediums. However, when it comes to a painting, we are very used to seeing a single surface on which a lot of different things happen. So the layers of improbability are all there for us to see and to interpret. As for the words themselves, each is a partial or fragmented message. We experience the spoken and written word continually in our lives and are forever processing that information. These words vary from the poetic to the mostly hidden, each giving only just so much information, but not enough to create understanding. In places the words partially disappear between sections, but even where you can see the whole words, the exact meaning or relevance is open to interpretation. This in many ways reflects the environment that we live in. We are bombarded with messages. We pick up fragments of each, whether they're spoken or written on a placard or whatever, or even heard on television or in film. But what we do with that information is up to us. There is a common misconception that the camera works exactly the same way as the human eye. Well, there are some similarities. The digital camera records areas of black, white and colour in each pixel, but it's indiscriminate. Whatever information passes through the lens and onto the chip is not processed as anything other than black, white and colour information. The human eye works somewhat similarly in that it too has a lens and a retina on which the image is recorded, but that's where the similarity ends. What the brain records via the eye are symbols. Think of it like this. When we teach a child to read, it is shape recognition and associated sound that are the keys. The brain learns to record the shape, sound, symbol so it'll remember it. It'll remember it next time. This is what we recall as seeing. What the brain is doing with that information is essentially creating an allegory from which meaning is derived. Now, an allegory is a collection of symbols that require interpretation. The camera is in one sense one-dimensional. The eye-brain combination is multi-layered. This is important in terms of the work produced by artists. All work is essentially allegorical, in that it is inevitably a collection of symbols to be interpreted. Renaissance painting is just this, but even the most abstract of work requires the eye-brain combination to interpret the information. It may be in terms of pattern, it may simply be colour, or individual viewers may find images in their memory banks to associate with what they see. Another consideration is what you might call the absence of presence or the presence of absence. This concerns what you might call negative space. A space not occupied by a figure could be seen as negative, but in the case of these paintings, it is not. There are certainly textural elements to each of the negative surfaces, however subtle, that act as a bridge. Where you have a figurative element or a word element, the areas in between allow the eye to pass from one to the other. So these areas are not negative in the sense of let's throw them away, but they are a means of connecting what is in the painting. Each of these paints is divided into sections that connect with each other. Now you can see the vertical divisions behave very much like time markers, and if you walk from one painting to another, those divisions will go right around the room, and you can think, oh yes, a moment has passed here, then another one, then another one. The viewer makes the connections. You can also see that the work is organised on the walls and looks somewhat like a film strip. It can be read backwards or forwards depending which way you walk. The viewer is led around the walls. So time becomes a factor. The vertical divisions in the paintings become markers that record successive moments, and the passage of the viewer around the gallery becomes a journey of time as well. In some ways, the viewer becomes an integral part of the work because they're required to walk from one to the other. So, what are these paintings about in the end? They're not pictures of something, such as a face or a landscape, and they're not transcriptions of emotional states. In essence, they're an attempt to explore the dichotomy between the world as we experience it and the limitations of the medium used to make those connections. A painting can tell you only so much. A film can tell you only so much. Whatever we determine to be reality, it is only ever part of the story, if in fact it is even a story at all.